This week on Florida's Voice, Governor DeSantis is cracking down on those who make a mockery of the book challenging process as parents in Florida fight to keep graphic material out of the classrooms.
The idea that a parent sending their kid to school should have to worry about some of the garbage that we've seen out there put into their school system, no, you shouldn't have to worry about that as a parent. You should rest assured, send your kid to first grade. They are not going to be told that they were born in the wrong body.
Democrats in Florida struggle to find people to run for office, launching a new campaign seeking candidates. This as another law and order conservative flips a seat in Winter Garden.
My two brothers and I built our business here in Winter Garden and have created hundreds of jobs during that time. This is how I learned that real leadership is about cooperation and collaboration, not conflict and contention. I believe we're best when we work together.
And young Republicans come together in Tampa, hear the buzz about the growing interest in politics. Plus all your stories covering Florida. This is Florida's Voice with Brennan Leslie. School boards across Florida continue to face book challenges as sexually explicit reading material is still being found in school libraries. But a new law will now limit some people who are challenging these books. Senior reporter Amber Jo Cooper is here with the details. Also, we wanted to warn you that some of the content in this story may not be suitable for young viewers.
It may or may not, I add, include kissing you to pass the sperm and fecal matter into your mouth. You have such a big problem in this district and nobody seems to care or listen. I've been here over 30 times.
That's our coverage from the Hillsborough School Board meeting this month. You may remember that parents were outraged and wanted school board members to remove the books from shelves. At a press conference this week, Governor DeSantis explained that although the state has made significant strides in allowing for parental rights at school board meetings, some people are taking advantage of the opportunity to challenge books and instead making a mockery of the law.
I don't think small school districts in particular should be inundated with a lot of these frivolous objections.
Now, a new law signed by Governor DeSantis will limit book challenges from non-parents to just one book objection per month.
You had a situation down in another part of the state of Florida where you had some teacher was being very passive aggressive, was trying to say, oh, parents' rights bill, I can't have any books in school, covering up all the books. That's performative. That's political. You're trying to be an activist when you should be trying to be an educator. So this bill addresses that.
Parents with kids in the school district will still be able to file as many objections as they wish. One mother spoke during the press conference and thanked DeSantis for taking action.
People that are using this action to further agenda have absolutely zero place in my child's school. School is not a place for agendas. People with agendas have taken what this was meant to be an avenue for parents like me to advocate for the safety of their children and made it into something that has created chaos for our teachers and our administrators.
Republican Representative Jennifer Kennedy carried the legislation in the House, while Republican Senator Danny Burgess carried the bill in the Senate. DeSantis said working with school boards is a team effort, and they want to work with any district that wants to improve education.
Not every school district in this state or school board has necessarily wanted to see positive reforms, but I will say in the 22 election, some of the ones that were dragging their feet were shown the door by the voters, and so that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
This is just one of the components of the bill. It also seeks to help improve failing schools in the state by pushing for quicker turnaround times, among other measures. I'm Amber Jo Cooper reporting in Orlando for Florida's Voice.
That's just one of the many bills that the governor signed this week. For a list of those new laws, you can check out our website, flvoicenews.com, for more. This week, a number of cities had traffic at a standstill with pro-Palestine protesters, but not in Miami, where police promptly removed them. The governor's communication director tweeted out this video of protesters being dragged out of the roadway. Miami City Police had help from state police and armored vehicles. At least 7 people were charged here with obstructing traffic and unlawful assembly. Democrats take another hit, this time in the Winter Garden District 2 commissioner's race. That's where the incumbent, backed by the Democratic Party, loses to a pro-police candidate. Michelle Vesserina has more on why that's not the only concern for Florida Democrats.
Brennan, incumbent candidate Ron Mueller came very close but lost to Elena Ramos-Jones in this week's runoff election.
When I think of Winter Garden, I think of home. This is where family is, where my friends are. This is the place that we built our business. we're living the American dream. Winter Garden has always been a place where leaders rise above politics for the betterment of our community. That's why I'm excited to be your next Winter Garden Commissioner.
That was the campaign message of newcomer Elena Ramos-Jones, who spent months campaigning and got the voters to pick her for the job. She won against Ron Mueller by just 57 votes. This race was nonpartisan, but the incumbent was backed by the Democratic Party. On Facebook, Mueller congratulated Jones and offered his support. This race is just one example where Democrats once again take a hit and shows the party's struggle in Florida. In fact, just this week, the state's Democratic Party launched a brand new campaign to recruit people to run for office in 4 counties: Polk, Madison, Miami-Dade, and Seminole. Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried said there are 27 uncontested House seats with no Democrats running. And this is after the Take Back Local effort failed in several key municipal races last month. Nikki Fried tried to spin the losses as a positive, but when Florida's Voice had a chance to sit down with GOP leader Evan Power about the losses, as you know, Brennan, he had plenty to say, but the best response was that he thinks she's a great chairman for the Democratic Party, and he hopes she serves in that position for a long time. I'm Michelle Vesarina reporting for Florida's Voice. Brennan, back to you.
Michelle, thanks for that report. Florida's Voice did reach out to Jones to talk about her big win. She didn't respond, but she says on her website that she's running on supporting police and pushing for conservative policies. Florida State Rep Bernie Jacques says he's pleased to see Governor DeSantis pushing forward the conservative agenda set by lawmakers in Tallahassee. Florida's Voice caught up with the Clearwater legislator at the Florida Young Republicans State Convention. Jacques sponsored several pieces of legislation that made it to the governor's desk. Of the 7 bills that were sent this session, Jacques expects all of them to receive the governor's stamp of approval. Among them, immigration enforcement addressing tough penalties on repeat offenders who come here illegally. Jacques is a legal immigrant and had this to say.
There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And one of the things that most legal immigrants hate is when people cut the line, when they see what they've had to go through, what their family members have had to go through. And there's a pride to become an American when you do it the right way.
Young Republicans are coming out in droves to support the GOP agenda in Florida and Washington, D.C. We caught up with political influencer Rogan O'Hanley, also known as DC Drano. Like State Rep Bernie Jacques, he too was at the Florida Young Republican State Convention. He tells us he was impressed by the growth in interest among young voters.
I've known young Republicans in the area for a while. I remember I showed up to the Tampa Bay Young Republicans about 5 years ago. There was maybe 30 people. Now they have sometimes over 300 people per meeting. There are articles saying that Tampa is a young Republicans' paradise, the number 2 place they want to move after college, according to some surveys, and you feel it.
He's right. The crowd was bigger, and so was the energy. Young Republicans are seeing what Florida's lawmakers are doing, taking bold steps and standing out among other states. Organizers say all of that is empowering others to find their voice as well.
We are the next generation, and we have to get out there. We have to be vocal, and we have to vote. And that's how we've made such an impact here in Tampa Bay. And if we saw more young Republicans just get out there and not be afraid, I think you'll see that next generation, 18 to 40, will really take over the voting block and show that we're not to be messed with.
Everybody sees the same thing. They've seen the leadership in Tallahassee. Everybody loves all of these, laws that are so controversial around the rest of the country. People are moving here because of those laws, and they're moving to Tampa specifically because of the environment we've created here as well.
One group making tremendous headway at the event and in Florida is the American Conservation Coalition. The grassroots organization puts their efforts into getting young people outdoors in natural surroundings. They say it's just one way to show people why they should love the land they live in. Another area of focus is reaching across the aisle because both political parties should care about the earth.
We should want to conserve America the Beautiful for our children, and that's inherently conservative, and we're here to change the messaging on that and make sure that all Americans, regardless of if they're Republican, conservative, liberal, or Democrat, that we can come together and conserve this beautiful country for everyone.
Finding humor in politics is what Bobby Take Naps Sausalito does best, and he proved that at the Tampa Bay event by keeping things light, yet still touching on many of the frustrating issues in Washington. He tells Florida's Voice he likes these young Republican events because they make being conservative cool again.
They've figured out how to make it cool to be against all of these things that you and I would probably consider to be correct and right by saying that it's bigoted or it's mean. And anything that can unite people to say that you're not alone and recognizing that these things are actually good and correct and more morally correct than what they think. I think anything that does that is great. And I think the Young Republicans does a fantastic job of doing that.
With hurricane season less than 2 months away, homeowners insurance is on the minds of many Floridians. Florida's Voice caught up with District 20 Senator Jim Boyd to break down what people can expect for their future coverages and rates. Our post-session coverage on Florida's Voice continues, and joining me in studio to talk more in detail about the things that conservatives did this session in Tallahassee is Senator Jim Boyd. Senator, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Brennan. Enjoy being here.
So, the first thing I want to talk to you about is something that's on the minds of many Floridians. That's the property insurance issues we're having in the state. You guys were pretty proactive. In fact, one of the most proactive states in America in handling this issue. But we haven't quite yet felt the impacts of the legislation you guys worked on. Can you explain to us what that process is like and what you did?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And it's a very important topic because, as you know, it affects every Floridian that owns a home. And when we poll our constituents to see what's most important on their minds, insurance is topping that list almost every time now. So back in 22, we did property insurance reform in the special session in December. And in that reform, a variety of things were accomplished, but most importantly, we leveled the playing field, kind of got the bad actors with the unscrupulous practices, both attorneys and in that case largely roofers, out of the picture, so homeowners and their insurance companies could interact when there was a claim and hopefully come to some good resolution that solves a claim. That will drive claim costs down, it will drive unexpected claim costs down, and ultimately premium dollars down. Already seeing some good results from that. In 23, the legislative session of 23, we had massive tort reform, which helps as well. But the property insurance reform, coupled with tort reform, I think is going to make massive difference in homeowners' premium cost over the foreseeable future. The reality of it is most people haven't seen that yet in their rate reductions, or much of it, because it takes 1.5 years to 2 months for those changes to filter through the rate making process. So claims have to be filed and all the data accumulated. Insurance actuaries go through and decide what their rates might need to be for this upcoming season or year, and then they file them with the insurance commissioner and they're approved or not, depending on what the insurance commissioner thinks of the proposal that the insurance companies make. So that point there is it takes time to get that through the process, 1.5 years to 18 months that I mentioned. We're seeing some really good signs in the reform that we did. There's already 8 or 9 new property insurance carriers that have come to Florida, enthusiastic about doing business in Florida and protecting Floridians. We've seen current companies that are doing business in Florida expand their scope and want to write more policies. And the insurance commissioner told me about 2 weeks before session was out, several weeks ago, he's already starting to notice a downward trend in rates. So that doesn't mean you're going to open up your mailbox tomorrow, say, oh gosh, I've saved 50% on my homeowner's insurance, but that is a very good barometer of what's to come. So savings is on the way. I firmly believe it. It just is going to take that period of time to work its way through the process and give Floridians options in terms of what their choices might be with their coverage. And I'll finish with this. My goal has always been to drive rates down and to create competition. Because the more competition, just like any other economic kind of situation, rates will come down. So that's all underway, and I think we're seeing some good progress to that end. It's going to take a minute, but I think we're well on our way to that goal that we set out to accomplish.
Do you think 2025 could be a really good year?
Yeah, I do. I believe it will. It's early 24 now, or it's April of 24. We're already starting to see some really good signs, and as I mentioned, some rates, the rate trends are starting to go downward. So by 25, I think it should be a very good year to start seeing some real savings. And as well as that, these new companies that are coming in, that provides new capital to the market, new opportunities for homeowners. And my goal has been as well, or our goal, I should say, to bring some of the national carriers back. We've been without some of the big household names providing homeowners insurance in Florida for some time now. The State Farms, the Hartfords, the Travelers, companies like that everybody knows that used to do a lot of property insurance business in Florida. They're starting to look again at this market very optimistically. So that's another good sign.
There were other programs this past legislative session in 2024 that got some funding that will also help the property insurance issue?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. The My Safe Florida Home program, it had been in place a ways back. We re-implemented it a couple years ago with funding for people to apply, Floridians to apply that own homes to harden their homes, whether it's windows or doors or hurricane shutters or those types of things. They can apply through the state CFO's website. There's an application process, and you apply. And if you're granted the money, it was a match, a dollar for dollar match, $5,000 up to $10,000 total that you could apply for and receive to harden your homes. That will drive costs down of insurance, because when you put new hurricane windows in or you put hurricane doors, you get premium credits for that from your insurance carrier. So that drives costs down. To further the program this year, we did another version of My Safe Florida Home, about $225 million in funding, I believe. And that was primarily designed to help low-income individuals first. So before it was just kind of everybody applies, you're in this pot of applications, and then as you know, your application gets processed, you would receive funding if everything met the standards that were set out to be accomplished. This time, the first look will be at the low-income homes and low-income families, so it gives them a chance to harden their homes as well, and then it filters to, you know, just about every Floridian that owns a home as that moves forward.
One of your big wins this past session was standing up for U.S. steel workers. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so we had this bill a couple of years. This year we got it across the finish line, and very happy about it. And it simply says if you're a public entity in Florida, you have to use U.S. steel unless the cost is 20% or more, or unless there's some reason you can justify not as a public entity not using U.S. steel. We found, and through our research and through talking with the stakeholders, inferior products coming from other countries, China specifically, and it wasn't up to the same standards as U.S. steel. So maybe the cost was a little bit cheaper, but the standards were the same, and you know, things can happen when you're not meeting reasonable standards. So this bill just provides that U.S. steel will be used on public works projects if it's 20% or less of the cost of anything else. So of any other steel.
So
that's a big win but to your point, that's a big win for U.S. workers. And in fact, we had I think it was the AFL-CIO, who supports workers all over the state, and usually, interesting being a conservative Republican, we don't always see eye to eye on issues, but they were wholeheartedly and enthusiastically supporting this bill and helped us with it because it affects their members as well.
My conservative radar was going off the charts here when you told me less money's going to China.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Which it's always a good thing to make sure that we're U.S. supporting U.S. made.
Yeah, and if we can make it in America and we can pay, at or the same price for it, why wouldn't we use that? And it made great sense. It took, as I said, a couple years to convince everybody in the legislature. It made great sense, but this year we had great progress and got it across the finish line. So that's exciting.
So when you come back to session next year, hopefully you get a nice long break in between. We'll have a new Senate president with the gavel. Senator Ben Alburn, he takes over in November. Tell us about him. What are your thoughts on him taking the gavel?
Yeah, Ben's been a great friend of mine. We came into the House together in 2010, served in the Florida House until he went to the Senate a little bit before me. And I couldn't be happier. He's a principled man. He's an honest man. He's a fair man. He listens to everybody, almost to his fault, because he spends a lot of his time doing that, which is perfectly fine. But he genuinely engaged in the process. I think he'll be a great leader. I think he'll be a collaborative leader. He's got a good group around him of great senators that will support him and help him accomplish his goals. So I couldn't be happier that he'll be our president as we return this fall.
Well, one of those guys that's going to be around him is you. I hear often that you are kind of like the big brother in Senate. Like a lot of people come to you, senators come to you for mentorship.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd rather be the big brother than the old man in the Senate.
I wanted to make sure that we said big brother
and
not like grandpa or something.
Thank you. But well, that's flattering. I'd like to work with people, and I've been around a little bit and have some life experience that sometimes people ask about or rely on. But we've got a great group. I mean, some of our youngest members are brilliant young senators, and it's really exciting to see everybody working together to do what's right for Florida. I mean, honestly, in our hearts and our minds every day when we go to work is let's do what's right for our constituents. If we do that, the rest is easy.
Yeah, the senators, it seems like the Senate really has a tight-knit team, and emphasis on the word team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it comes from leadership. You know, when I came in the Senate, Wilton Simpson was our president. Can't think of a better leader. You know, he listens, he's collaborative, he's deferential to a fault almost. He gives everybody else credit for many times the things he does. So I really enjoyed working with him. Then followed by Kathleen Pasadomo, who's been a great leader, and now Ben. And then around them, good senators that make committee chairmen and chairwomen, and good policy comes as a result of that. So it's been exciting. As I said earlier, I was in the House for 8 years, and I really enjoyed my time there. The Senate's been kind of a different experience because it's a smaller group. It seems to be a more collaborative group, and we're all working a lot harder together to do the right thing.
Senator Jim Boyd joining us here in studio at Florida's Voice. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.
Senator Boyd mentioned the My Safe Florida Home program. That program is currently out of funding, but we checked, and the new funding will be available on July 1st. State Rep Tom Leek of Ormond Beach just got a big endorsement in his push for a Senate seat, and it comes from Senator Jay Collins. Collins announced the news this week, saying Leek's platform embodies devotion, endurance, and integrity. He went on to say that LEAK stands for Police and Protecting the Rights of Floridians. The open District 7 seat is currently held by Republican Senator Travis Hudson of Palm Coast, but he has reached his term limit. LEAK currently represents House District 28. And finally, we take a moment to recognize some of the people who keep the lights on in Florida. We're talking about the linemen who keep your power on. And when it goes out because of strong storms and hurricanes, they're the ones who risk everything to get it up and running really quick. The gratitude was on display this week on X, where people like U.S. Senator Rick Scott and the Florida's Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Petronas took time to recognize them with messages for National Lineman Appreciation Day. Duke Energy sent messages too, as did some of the businesses that know they can't operate without the power. With hurricane season starting on June 1st, we know that these are the people who most certainly deserve a round of applause. We just want to thank you for tuning in for another episode of Florida's Voice with Brennan and Leslie. As always, make sure you subscribe to our website, flvoicenews.com. You click that subscribe button at the top and you'll never miss another headline or another show again. We appreciate you. We'll see you again next Friday, 9 a.m. across our platforms. God bless.